Hi everybody. I'm going to make some homemade mac and cheese tonight, and I am following a new recipe and I hope that you find it enjoyable. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to cook, I chose the small elbow macaroni. We need 4 cups of that to cook, and so I put that in my big pan over here. I think that's the only pan I have that's going to hold that much cooked macaroni. I have not yet salted my water. One of the things that I read quite a while back was to salt it after you put your pasta in, or after it becomes to the rolling. Try this again. Not to salt this until after it comes to a rolling boil. And this is how together I am with it tonight. If I would have just read my package size, I would have known that was 4 cups, but okay. It's the end of a Monday, and here I am. So away we go. I'm not going to measure, I'm just going to put a pinch of salt in here. Now the thing about this is that we have to make sure to stir this right now, so that it doesn't all clump together and stick. And we'll let it come to another boil again, and then we'll stir it again. Now the other thing, I have given up putting the lids on, but I have found that it really truly does work to put a spoon over top, and for some reason that does prevent it from boiling over. And I'll take all the help in that area I can get. I'm going to go ahead and get our sauce going, although it's going to take a little while for this macaroni to cook. I'm going to keep it on as high a heat as I can get and get it going. I meant to have supper ready when my son got home today, but that's alright. He'll have to be tough for a little bit. So what we are going to do, and because we are working with butter and milk and all those fun things, we're going to have to not rush our sauce, because if I do, we will end up with a burned, scalded, nasty mess. So we're going to start with a 1/4 stick of, it's supposed to be salted butter, but I wasn't paying attention the other day and I bought non-salted. It's going to be fine, it's going to be fine, it's going to be fine. We'll probably add just a hair more salt than the recipe calls for, just to kind of make up for that a little bit, because macaroni by itself is kind of bland. So we will do that. And then after this melts, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and dump our flour in this melted butter, and we'll whisk it together. And we'll do that until that flour kind of cooks a little bit and gets a little bit golden brown. In a little while here, we're going to add an egg, but I'm going to go ahead and whisk this egg up just a little bit so that it's ready for its next step as well. It doesn't have to be perfect, because we're going to add some more stuff to it, but for right now it's good. Butter all melty here, and then we'll add in our flour. Whisk it all together, and again, because we don't want anything to burn, we're not going to go super crazy, but I am going to turn it up a little bit for right now because we don't have the milk in yet, and we do need this flour to cook. If you don't cook your flour after you dump it in when you're making a gravy of any kind, then it really doesn't have a good taste or a flavor. It just tastes like if you're going to lick your finger and try the flour in your cup right now. It doesn't taste much different than that. I learned that the hard way when I was making white gravy all by myself the first time as a teenager. I thought I would make supper for my friends, and the gravy was horrific. And so then when I asked It was, well, did you cook the flour before you added the milk? And I said, well, no. Even though I had helped and seen it done for however many hundreds of times before that, I failed in that step. So, all right, now we're going to go ahead and sprinkle in our 1/4 cup of flour. We'll get it going here. So in the beginning, it just looks like that. But we're going to cook it for a few minutes to where it gets a little bit of color to it. And we don't have to stir it the whole time. Hey, of course I do have help outside. I'm so sorry. So sorry for wildlife interference. Be right back. Okay. I'm going to have to stop again in a minute and put him back in because he seems to be scared to be outside by himself, but that's our helpful dog. So our flour and butter are bubbling right along. Oof. Making a mess as I go. And stir our noodles again just to make sure our macaroni is not sticking together here. Because boy, once it gets stuck, it's kind of hard to unclump it. And we're going to give this just a little bit more, and then we're going to add in slowly so we don't disrupt this whole thing. We're going to add in our 2½ cups of milk. And I'll be right back again. This really hasn't turned much browner yet. So I'm going to give it, I think, just 1 or 2 more minutes. It's still pretty pale. I know it's not going to get super dark, and I don't want it super dark for what we're cooking, but we do want to make sure that flour is good and cooked, otherwise it just won't have a good flavor. My faithful watchdog here is sitting on the edge of no man's land just in case I might drop something that I won't notice. He's going to try to come get. He's not supposed to be in the kitchen when I'm cooking, and he knows that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start slowly adding in the first 2 cups. And one of the reasons we don't want to add it too quickly, as you can see, that steam rising up, that's a really good way to get scalded pretty badly. And it's thickening right up the minute this milk hits it, so it makes it harder to stir. And if we add it too quickly, then we can't make sure that our lumps are out. We don't want a lumpy sauce. I also need to remind myself I'm on the hottest burner in the house. Before this gets too crazy and too far along, grab our other ½ cup so it's all cooking evenly. All right, we are going to add not very much mustard because we're not a huge mustard family in our taste bud realm. The recipe calls for 2 heaping teaspoons of mustard, and I just did a half. For some reason, I'm a little adventuresome to a point, but I'm not really sure that I want my macaroni and cheese to have a strong mustard taste. If you like mustard and you want to dive off into that 2 teaspoons, you help yourself. All right, we need to cook this for 5 minutes. And I'm going to just keep stirring this occasionally from time to time so that we make sure that it doesn't burn. You cannot now just completely walk away from this and go do something else for 5 minutes and come back and not expect to have some completely scalded sauce. So don't do that. All right, be back in a couple minutes. Our noodles are all cooked. I have them finally draining. This main part of our sauce is done. Now what we're supposed to do is we're supposed to take a 1/4 cup of this sauce and add it into the egg, whisking the whole time. And the reason for that is because you want the egg to not be clumpy and gross either. So I'm just using a big spoon, and I'm going to add it in a little bit at a time, whisking as I go. And as soon as I can get that to be pretty smooth, let me get that one back in my sauce. And we're going to go ahead and add this into our pan. And we'll do this again a little bit at a time, whisking the whole time. Again, we're trying to prevent all the lumps and clumps and stuff that we could possibly have. Between the flour, the egg, and the milk, that's what's going to help this all settle up together here. All right. Now, what we get to do is we get to add in a pound of cheese. And I chose to do half a pound of sharp cheddar and half a pound of Monterey Jack. Now, you can use whatever cheeses you want to, totally up to your liking. But I thought this sounded like a fun combination tonight, so that's what I've chosen. Now we're going to have to really watch this so it doesn't scald and burn. And once all this cheese gets melted in here, then we're going to combine the rest of our seasonings. And then we'll put it all together in a pan into the oven. That's coming together very nicely. The dog is not amused that I am spilling this on the stove instead of on the floor for him. So here we go. Very nicely indeed. Doesn't take long for this cheese to melt. I did not buy pre-shredded cheese. I do my own. They always put extra additives in the already shredded cheese that you buy at the store, flour and or whatever. This tonight is not a keto-friendly, gluten-free, diabetic dish. However, you could easily make it that way by switching out your noodles for gluten-free or some of the other alternative things. I think they have all kinds of vegetable noodles these days. You could switch out the flour, if I didn't already say that, for gluten-free flour or almond flour, whichever you so choose. All right, because this is just on the verge of starting to get a little scaldy, I'm turning my heat off. I have a couple more little lumps of cheese in there, but I'm not really concerned about that because it's gonna melt in the oven anyhow. All right, so now it calls for half a teaspoon of pepper. It calls for, that's not gonna work, half a teaspoon of salt. And I'm only starting with that much for right now because I do use the Redmond sea salt and it is saltier. And then it also calls for half a teaspoon of whatever your favorite kind of seasoning salt is. Mine is Alpine Touch. Again, if you are cooking for anybody who has any kind of MSG allergies, this is not for them. So make sure, if it's for somebody outside your family, make sure that you know what their allergies are. Just because it can cause them headaches and all kinds of havoc if we don't. And that's not fun for anyone. All right. I have already pre-buttered my baking dish. And we're actually going to do this the opposite way. I don't have much water in here. I have a little bit. They say to mix it in here and then put it in our baking pan. So here we go. It's good thing I did some extra draining. So I'm just going to throw this back in here. Woof. And throw noodles on the floor, which I'm sure the dog will be happy about later. And pour this in there. And you know it's cheese, so you know we can't waste any of that. So I am going to have to flip this a little bit to clean out this pan. After all, the cheese sauce is what makes mac and cheese the best, right? I already have the oven set to 350 degrees. And this is all going to go together in there for 20 to 25 minutes. Now, also, if you wanted to, totally up to you. Some people like a crunchy top on their mac and cheese. If you do, feel free to top your pan with some breadcrumbs and a little butter, or breadcrumbs and a little bit more shredded cheese. Or if you just want to add some Parmesan cheese on top, feel free to do that as well. All right, mixing together lovely, and it smells delicious. So into the pan we go. I'm really, really, really thankful that I switched pans. I had a much smaller one going earlier. That would not have worked out well. All right. So this is what it looks like now. We'll come back in about 20-25 minutes and see how it turned out. See you in a few. Okay. It's been 20 minutes. I just took this out. Should show you what it looks like. Voila. Now, to make sure that the egg and milk mixture is really cooked in here and this is really done, you want to take just a table knife that's clean and dry and stick it down in. The only thing I'm getting back out is just a little bit of cheese. If this was not done, this would be really runny and you could really see the milk and the cheese, and you would want to put it back in for that extra 5 minutes. But this is going to be called done in my world. And I'm going to let this sit for just a few minutes before we dish up, and we'll be ready to taste it here in a few minutes. Yum, smells great. Okay, time has come. Shouldn't have to burn my mouth off. And let's see. Definitely not my dad's recipe. Okay, the only thing that I think I would do differently is I would add a few little dabs of butter on top. It's just a little dry on the top versus the way that we did this. And I just know that difference because the recipe I grew up with at home, we always put a few dabs of butter on top, and that would alleviate that dryness on the top. Hope you enjoy it.